All right, everybody, welcome. It's Jermaine here with the Impact Agency. Welcome to our Monday sales training, agency training call. We have a phenomenal guest speaker that I'm going to introduce to you, and we're going to have a conversation that I know a lot of you are going to benefit from. If you are on the call and you're in a position where you could share your screen, or not share your screen, sorry, show your face on camera, please do. It makes it more interactive, especially for our guest speaker, so that way she can see who she's talking to. So we have on the call today somebody that I've been social media stalking a little bit and watching some of her training videos and some of the content that she's put out via social media and different FFL training calls. And I reached out because I knew this was going to be helpful for everyone within our agency, outside of our agency. And this call is going to be recorded and put up on YouTube as well to benefit as many people as possible. But real quick, Nicole, you're killing it. And I want you to be able to share your background, with everybody that's on the call, just so they get introduced to you. And then I could jump into some questions. So top producer already with FFL, tell them, a little bit about who you are, what your background is, and how long you've been with FFL.
So I actually started in health insurance. I was 22. I had just turned 22. I'm 25 now. And I was actually studying for my LSAT to go to law school. So that's initially what I was going to do my whole life since I was 8 years old. I'm like, I'm going to be an attorney. And then, here we are in sales. So started off in that, and then I ended up leaving the health insurance industry just because it was, with the company that I was with, it was like a revolving door. I didn't ever see myself, building, or it was always like, asking for permission whenever I wanted to do something. If I wanted to, make however much, I had to basically ask my upline if I could do that. If I wanted to recruit, I had to wait for a promotion. So I got kind of over that, the whole self-employed thing just didn't apply to that. So I ended up switching over to solar, and I went from doing telesales to actually doing door to door in the sun in Florida. So, yeah, telesales is definitely, something that a lot of people take for granted. But when you're in 90-degree weather and it's humid, things get put into perspective a little bit. So I actually ended up meeting with Sean in Boca, and this was back in October. And he was like, just give it a try. This is great. A lot of people are killing it. And I'm like, yeah. Everyone says the same thing about their company. So finally, I ended up meeting with AJ, who's my direct upline. He came from my previous company also, and then Josh as well. And when I saw their system and then what they were doing, I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. I'm a little bit over 60 days since starting FFL, and it's already been life-changing to the point I literally want my whole family to be doing this. So that's a lot to say, because I would never bring them into my old company whatsoever.
That's pretty cool. So you have, just 60 days. I'm sorry, I had to go back to that. So just 60 days with Family First Life, and you're already killing it. So let me ask you this at the top of the call, and I might bounce back and forth with my questions, but what were some of the skills that you had learned from either your telesales or your solar experience that you were able to transfer here to help you kind of have success out the gate?
So something that I learned at the door that you always have to keep in mind on the phone, because you get discouraged when you hear so many no's, but it's actually scarier when someone opens the door and you think that they're going to murder you because you just woke them up from a nap. That's scary, Getting hung up on is not that bad. But anytime someone opens the door, answers the phone, although it's a warm lead, or, you purchase a lead, they know what they were getting themselves into, you have to treat them as like every phone call that they pick up, every door that they open, the client's always ice cold. So it's your job to warm up to them, show them your personality. And, because sales is a transfer of emotion. So typically they buy you before they buy the product. So for me, it was, how can I transfer this? Because they can't see me over the phone. And that's something that definitely changed the game for me, was just like transferring that over to just phone sales.
Makes sense. And do you feel that your experience going door to door was beneficial for you with being able to do telesales? How did that experience help specifically?
It helped because, to put it in perspective, you can do so many more phone calls in 30 minutes than you can knock doors. So it's a numbers game at the end of the day. It doesn't matter, old leads suck. Everything is horrible whenever you're, on there. You got to embrace the suck. That's something that I always had to tell myself, when I went into the car, because I'm like dehydrated and have the AC blasting. I like, embrace the suck. You're going to get it. If I was to tell you, hey, Jermaine, there's actually $10,000 bags sitting on someone's door. All you have to do is knock the door to find it. Would you do it? Same thing.
Yes.
There's someone literally like my phone background on my work phone. It's like, who's got my money? It's from like Grant Cardone. So I call every single lead, like, who has my money? And that's my job, is to find out who's got it. Like, who is it? So
Yeah.
it was definitely like seeing like the numbers game and putting in perspective. In 30 minutes, I try to like knock like 100 doors a day. You can call 100 clients within 30 minutes, or you can take 6 hours to knock 100 doors. So if you put that in perspective, you're like, wow, this is actually crazy. And then also the ability to not only just do your state. So I'm licensed in 32 states. I can't run, 32 states at once if I'm in person, but I'm able to do that over the phone.
Makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. And we have a lot of agents on here, Nicole, that either are newer with us because we're growing aggressively as an agency. And we also have agents that, have been doing in-home for a long time. And we are kind of embracing that hybrid model of, hey, we'll do some in-home as well as we'll do some telesales or some virtual sales. And so let's talk about, because I know your focus is mainly the virtual sales or telesales specifically. Are you doing via Zoom or you do just over the phone?
Over the phone.
Over the phone. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about kind of your lead strategy, how you approach that, what tips you would have for new agents that's looking to get started and focus on, doing some telesales.
Which hybrid is great. I actually had a conversation. She's on here with Alondra. She joined the call here, but Alondra is in our agency as well. And she does a hybrid system. It works great for her. And, it just depends on your style and what you like. Some people like before, when I was in school, I was a waitress. Like, I loved looking at people, having conversations with people. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I do miss that. So I was actually talking to her about it. Like, maybe one week we just like do a little blitz and then just go see everybody, right? Just to have that human touch, because it's important, especially after COVID. You want to, you want to be around people. But basically, lead strategy, I invest in leads twice a week. I typically do Sundays and Wednesdays, because the leads that you purchase on Sunday, you're working Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Leads that you purchase on Wednesday, you're working Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The reason why I do it like that is because I found that whenever I was getting all my leads at once, I ended up having all these leads. And then by the time that I reached the bottom of the list, then either they were, already bombarded or taken care of. And then the conversation was just a little bit more tense than if I split it up and I actually had the opportunity to work the leads, effectively. Would be another thing to look at too. You want to make sure you're being effective with it.
Makes sense. Absolutely. And what are some of the, when you're dialing your leads, what are some of the objections that you either overcome or prevent? Like, if you had to say, hey, my top 2, 3 objections that you overcome or you prevent.
I would say the main thing is realizing the difference between a smokescreen and an objection. Like, someone saying, I'm busy, but you weren't busy enough to pick up the phone. I go for the 3 no's. So, okay, I'm busy. Okay, great. Yeah. And then you tell them, I realize you're busy, but, and then you keep going with your script, and they're like, and then you'll realize that they keep answering. And by the time they realize that they're still going, they're like, wait, I'm busy. I'm like, yeah, I know you're busy. So am I. So you just keep going with it, that's the first one. I'm busy a lot, or I'm at work, because during the time that we dial, there's a lot of people that still work. But another one that I get is, oh, I already got it taken care of, or not interested. With those, it's mainly like, you want to make sure that the reason that they're not interested, is it because they're getting a lot of calls? Was it because they're discouraged that someone wasn't able to help them? Is it a pricing thing? Can you not afford it? Because if someone that, if an agency that only has one product calls them and tells them, hey, yeah, I'm a broker, I have access to everything, but really they don't. And then they give them a price, they're like, well, I can't afford anything. So you have to make sure that they know that, okay, I really am calling you from the state. I'm, have access to all these different plans. what is it that they offered you, and then just get the information, because information is key to everything. So as much as information as you have, more ammo that you have to kind of like come back to them and be like, okay, this is what I'm offering. So, you know, you have the ability to say more and provide them more when you know more. So just try to get all the information.
Awesome. Good stuff. And when it comes to building trust, you know, with doing in-home like I've done for 5 years, you know, it's like once they open the door, they see this $1 million smile. Trust is automatically built. But when you're, you know, over the phone, what are some of the things that you do to build trust when you're trying to help that family over the phone?
So it's the same thing. It's so weird. People hear when you're nervous, they hear when you're frustrated. Like it's there's like body language in your voice if you want to like take or look at it that way. So for me, I'm weird. I love joking around. Like I just, you know, like I'll crack a joke or say something. Um, my go-to that I start hearing other people in the agency say, it's like, oh, so I have your date of birth as blah blah. Okay, and just confirm your age for me. I'm really bad at math. It's not my forte. And then when they tell me their age, I'm like, yeah, you know, if God gave me math skills, he knew I'd be too powerful. So he left that one out. And from there, if they laugh, I know I have them. If they don't, then I'm like awkward, you know, but typically I do get them on that one. But it's just your personality. You know, if you were to call your grandma and you're telling, hey, grandma, this is what happened in my day, are going to be like, hey, grandma, yeah, I had a great day. No, you're going to be like, you know, you're going to be excited to talk to your family members. So just treat them like their family, and then they're going to feel like they're your family and they're going to trust you like that.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And when it comes to that's really good because you know I was just thinking about sometimes, and I think it makes sense to pause here for a second. Sometimes new agents, they're so mechanical because they're nervous, right? And that can come across. You know, if somebody's calling me, and now I'm not our everyday client, but if they're sounding like too stiff, I might be like, yeah, click. So being able to kind of loosen up and, like you said, make a little fun of yourself if necessary, to be able to connect, I think that's a great way to build trust. That's a good tip that you made there. And guys, if you have questions, drop them in the chat because at the end we're gonna ask some questions. When it comes to your schedule, let's talk about that a little bit, Nicole, because I know a lot of people think about this, you know, telesales or hybrid sales, and they think, oh, sweet, I could just sit at home in my pajamas and I could just make sales whenever I want. And then those are the people that end up being out of business, right? So is your schedule sitting at home in your pajamas and just making sales whenever you want?
So, well, the pajamas part, don't come after me. I am wearing like pajama pants. But you still, you know, I still am wearing a nice shirt just in case. And, you know, I still try to, because when you look good, you feel good, you know, and then
Amen.
a lot of the times, this is something that helped me, especially when I first started. I had a mirror in front of me because I found myself that like, if I smile, people will know I'm smiling. I don't know what it is, but they'll know I'm smiling. So I would look at myself and I look like I just woke up, then they would hear that I just woke up, you know? So it's just making sure that you know and you're aware of what you're doing. That's a big one. But for me, as far as schedule, I do try to, you know, I wake up in the morning. You've probably seen it. I go to at 45 in the morning, which is like my workout. I'm usually done by like 6:15. I come home, I eat breakfast, I shower, and then I'm ready to go by like 8 o'clock. So I don't really start down until like 8:30. I give myself, you know, a little bit of time. I check all my emails, make sure everything's up to date, and everything like that. But one thing that I found that was better for me was just treating it as if it was a 9 to 5. So from 8:30 till about 12:30 or 1 o'clock, I'm working. I take a break for lunch, and then I come back at like 2 or 2:30, and then I'm dialing until, you know, like 6 o'clock my time, and then running appointments if I set any callbacks, you know, during the time. They're like, oh, call me after this time. I'll be like, okay. And then I just set callbacks that way. But I treat it as a 9 to 5. I actually saw it was like a Instagram reel. It's like, haha, I left my 9 to 5 to work for myself, and then now I work 24/7. Like that's
Yeah.
a real thing, you know. It's not that you don't have work-life balance, but if you're not keeping yourself accountable, like you don't have a system where you're punching in, but if you're not tracking everything that you do and keeping yourself accountable, then you're not going to be successful, you know, because you can't go from working for somebody, making their money, and not respecting yourself enough to give you those many hours so that you can be successful as you would be if you were applying the same hours that you did for somebody else. So that's how I see it. It's like, that's my time, you know, I can do so much more with that time.
That is so true. I posted a video with my barber on Instagram, and he was just talking about when you getting started, like when he got started, it was 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. And, you know, especially as you're trying to figure things out, being new to this business, whether it's in-home or telesales, you got to put in the hours. And especially when you're self-employed, you don't go self-employed to work less. So if you're on this call, and Nicole, I'm sorry if any of your agents take this offensively, but if you're on this call and you thought, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to work less and, you know, do the 4-hour work day and life is going to be sweet, you're going to lose. So save yourself the time and go get a job. There's nothing wrong with jobs, but it's if you're willing to be self-employed, you're going to work harder than you've ever worked before. And that's great, because now you're in control and you get the reward for the work that you put in. Is that about right, Nicole?
Yeah, it's about right. So it's a risk versus a reward. I mean, it's either you're buying your time back by putting more time at the beginning, or you're basically giving away your time and then hoping that one day you make it with what they're giving you. So that's how you have to see it. It's like, either I sacrifice now so that then I can reap the benefits later, or do I just give all my time to this place that's just going to continue growing? And think about it, if you were to die today, how quickly are they going to fill your spot? That's what you want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but that's crucial. That's one of the areas where I see agents struggle, is having the appropriate schedule and then being able to manage themselves, you know, being a business owner, you know, versus being an employee when somebody's telling you when to show up. So,
And it's
let's
tough.
touch,
And I'll just
go
say
ahead.
this real quick, because I'm not like, oh, I do this and it's great. Like, I have accountability people, you know, like I was saying, like Alondra's on this call. I've had accountability calls with her, for her and for myself. I talk to my leader often. I'm like, hey, so I feel like this week this is going on. And then we break down what it is that I was doing and my activity. And then I quickly realized, like, oh, I was doing this last week. I didn't do so much of that this week. So now I'm going to apply the same effort that I did the past week. And then, you know, you start seeing that. So you have to set a schedule, but having yourself be accountable and having someone to keep you accountable once you're kind of like, because we all get not complacent, but when you're like, oh, I had a big check this week, you know, don't invest in leads this week.
Yeah,
Like, you have to keep being consistent, but definitely having someone like an accountability buddy. I know it sounds silly, but I have one.
yeah, no,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, I know a few of these agents on the call actually have accountability, and that's one thing that we want to do more as an agency, is help you guys partner with someone that can help hold you accountable. You know, like I know how to work out, you know, because I started working out in high school, but it's, you know, I push myself harder when there's a trainer yelling at me and tell me one more rep. If not, I'd give up. They're like, all right, that's enough. But you know, having someone there allows you to do more, and that's so powerful. So that's good stuff. Um, all right, so I want to jump into in-home and then into some of these questions that's in the chat. Drop your questions in the chat, guys. But before I get to in-home, mindset is so important in what we do. And I know that, yes, we focus on activity and you focus on activity, Nicole, but I know one of the things that gives you a competitive edge is your mindset. And I know that because I see you're on the 75 hard program. Where are you in that process, by the way? Did you finish already, or?
I didn't finish. So this is actually something that I had to kind of like, you know, leave behind, because you're, as an agent, you go through different stages in your, I guess, like, career. So the point of my career that I'm in right now, all my time has to be dedicated to growth and then also keeping personal production. So I still work out and, you know, I still eat healthy and everything like that. But the doing 2 a day and everything like that, that I was taking that time away from, you know, recruiting or training a new agent. So I'm still in a way following that. I'm still reading my 10 pages, but I'm not going full in on the 75 hard yet.
No worries.
Yeah, I'll get
How
there.
is that helping your mindset though? Because being able, like you said, working out, reading, What are some of the other things that you do to be able to maintain the right mindset? You know, mental health is important, especially in what we do. Your mind's got to be in the right place. So talk about that a little bit, because I don't think we talk about that enough in business.
Yeah, and it's crazy because whenever someone's struggling, it all comes down to mental health. And it's crazy that not a lot of people talk about it. So you know, you have to determine what it is. One, your why has to be strong. Like it has to be strong enough to where when you're laying down, you're like, I gotta get up because there's my why is waiting for me to succeed. And if I don't do that, then I'm letting myself down and I'm letting those people that are counting on me to make it down. My why is my mom. I lost my mom to cancer 6 years ago tomorrow, actually. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
it's, you know, that's like what keeps me going every day is my two siblings. Because I know that if me being the big sister, I don't get it together, then who are they going to look up to make sure that they get it together? So I can't let them down. So that why for me is what makes me not want to snooze the button. Because trust me, I have like 10 alarms set in the morning. I'm a snoozer for sure. But your why has to be strong. You also have to, you know, I'm not saying be religious, be this or be that, but you have to believe in something greater than yourself, because when something that is greater than yourself, whether it's God to you, whether it's the universe to some people, you know, your problems don't seem as large when there's something bigger than yourself that you look up to. And then that you either you meditate, you pray, whatever it is that you do, you have to believe in something greater than yourself. And then obviously affirmations are huge. You feed yourself good food, that's great. But if what you're feeding your mind every single day is not good, you're not going to perform well. And that's something that, especially if you're competitive and if you're very, you know, you're competitive, you're an overachiever. I'm all those things. I'm very competitive. I come from an athletic background. You know, I had straight A's in high school, you know, all these things. You tend to beat yourself up. So whenever you feel, again, comes down to accountability. Whenever you feel like you're going down that rabbit hole, then go to the person that you're there to keep you accountable, not to complain and vent, you know, because misery loves company. You don't want to do that either. But what you do want to do is just have someone to remind you like, hey, you're doing great. You know, just keep doing what you're doing. Sales, it's a roller coaster. Some weeks are going to be amazing. Some weeks are going to be slow. But when you look at the compound effect at the end of the year, you're going to really realize, hey, I did amazing, actually. So give yourself some credit. That's what I'm saying. Because you're doing great. And if you're not, you know, just be around the people that are. Feed off your environment. If your environment's not doing well, then change your environment. But just have people to remind you, like, you got this, like, you know, slay the day. You got it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about that, which everybody should connect with, is that, man, we're not perfect. You know, sometimes you could look at someone that's producing more, helping more families, and you think, oh man, they must be perfect. Every day in their life is great. Every dial day goes perfectly. Every run day, telesales day, they're closing everybody. That's definitely not the case. The one thing that's consistent amongst others, but the main thing is that that individual is consistent in what they do, and they have a way to kind of flip the switch and say, all right, this day may not have went the way I wanted it to, or it's not going the way I wanted it to, but I'm going to keep going. So, and that's so crucial. And then you add those days, you know, Andy Frisella talks about, hey, you will, you know, have some days that you lose. You'll have some days that you win. You stack them together, you realize you win more than you lost. It's just that when you're losing, it feels like it's the end of the world, right? So, but that's a part of the process. And it's, hey, can you, I don't know where I heard this phrase, but it's like, can you take a licking and keep on ticking? You know, that's entrepreneurship. And the people who do that more often are the ones that win at the highest level. So, now let's talk a little bit about in-home, Nicole. And what I'd like you to do is just the most important part of the in-home presentation, or in this case, telesales, I would say is the structure. So I'm gonna just let you run for a little bit and just talk about how you structure the appointment, exactly what you say up until the point where you're gonna present. I mean, presenting is just asking health questions and then presenting the options. But what's crucial is that first part where we establish control, tell them what and how we're going to do what we're going to do. And if you could kind of just give that to everybody.
Yeah, so honestly, I don't reinvent the wheel whatsoever. My script still says Josh Williams on it. Like, obviously, I don't say, "Hey, I'm Josh Williams," because it's like a very feminine voice. But I don't change it whatsoever. So our approach is always calling everybody as if like you're not cold calling people to sell them insurance. You're an agent from the state that's looking to fulfill the request that they filed online for coverage. So once you understand that psychology, that you're not selling, you're doing customer service, it comes off in your voice, and then they're going to hear it too. So, be like, I call someone, let's say Cameron. Hi, Cameron. This is Nicole. I'm calling from the Benefit Center in regards to a request that you submitted online for life insurance. Just to verify, I have your date of birth as blah, blah. They'll be like, yep. Okay, great. So just letting you know that we have processed your request. We're doing everything virtually now, so it takes about 15 minutes. Go ahead and grab a pen and paper. Let me know when you're ready. I just sit there, and then they grab the pen and paper. Once they get that, then you get into what you would do in home, where you just start asking questions. Sell me this pen. It's just asking questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then you start asking questions. Okay, so great. I have your, are you currently working? Are you on disability? You start asking all those questions, and then you go into the inventory sheet. You have it for a reason. So you ask all those medical questions. You find out their income. I actually have it written down somewhere. It's like SMIC. So you go through, their situation, income, you go over basically all their information that you want to get out of there. And then from there, you start generating quotes, you give them different options, you explain to them what they're getting themselves into. Like if you're doing a whole life, like let them know that, they're getting a whole life policy. If they're doing a term, then you explain stuff like that. And then from there, the only way that we can find out if you qualify is by submitting an application over to underwriting. So what's the legal spelling of your name? So it's the same structure that you would do in home, except that now you're doing it over the phone. But in between, getting their information, that's when you start being personable. So, okay. So if something were to happen to you today, who would your beneficiary be? And then, oh, my son, oh, what's your son's name? And then you start talking about it. People love talking about their family members. You'll realize, yeah, my son, he's in college, he's playing football, he's doing awesome. You're like, oh my God, that's great. So, God forbid something were to happen to you, you want to make sure Jamie can continue going to school and then, stuff like that. So that's when you start being personable, is by asking those questions and use their family members' name all the time. Make it like, oh, if something were to happen to you, would you want to qualify for this or that to leave Jamie behind with that money? So you want to make sure you're using their family's name every single chance that you get, because that's how you get more personable.
Makes sense. That's good
I have
stuff.
allergies. My bad.
No, that's good. That's really good. And what I love the most about what you said is that you didn't reinvent the wheel. I mean, a lot of times we have agents that come on board and they want to do their own things, like, oh yeah, let me try it this way, and yet they claim to be coachable, right? And you can't have both. You can't want to do it your own way and claim to be coachable. And what I realized, and I'm assuming you realize as well, is that, hey, if this company is already successful, it's already have multiple producers producing at the highest level before I came on board, why would I want to reinvent the wheel? I was always the type of individual that would do great with a franchise. I actually looked into it before getting into this business and I couldn't afford it. But to me, it made sense.
I'm coming for you.
Yeah, right. It made sense to just get a model that already works and duplicate it. And that's exactly what you're doing. And it's like, you're like, it's just matter of fact, hey, this is what we have to do. And I love what you said. We're not selling or cold calling. We're just a customer service rep that's fulfilling, a need, or order, or request. And just when you approach it like that, it comes across in your tone, tying in what you said with the family members. That's super powerful. Anything else you want to add to that from an in-home standpoint? Any other tips or anything like that?
I go, and I actually haven't shared this with my team, I don't know why, but memorize, internalize, and personalize. So memorize the information, internalize it so that it becomes second nature, and then personalize it to the point where it's your own. I mean, don't, like I said, reinvent the wheel, but just make it your own. If, the script says a word, like English is not my first language, so there's some words that I still struggle with pronouncing. So I will not say it, you know what I mean? So I'll make it my own in that aspect. But yeah, if you want to reinvent the wheel, there's a lot of companies that have no system in place. I would love someone to do that. But if you're already, in the place where it is, just plug and play. and play
Yep.
hard. You know? There's a
Yep.
lot of money to
100%. 100%. That makes sense to me. Okay. I'm going to back up a little bit and then I'm going to jump into these questions. You had mentioned you do leads bi-weekly, Sundays and Wednesdays, I believe is what I wrote down here on my notes. And make sure you guys are taking notes, by the way. What leads are you using, Nicole? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I've been trying to mix it up a little bit because if you don't get the leads on time, you're gonna realize your county starts just wiping out by the time you purchase them. So
Yeah.
3 month, they're not as bombarded as like the 1 month. I know I mentioned the 1 month before on the leads. I did dabble a little bit into the live transfers, but those honestly, they're pretty expensive. And the return ratio, you know, unless you're closing every single one, and especially starting, you're going to find yourself spending a lot of money. All a live transfer is literally they call them and they transfer it to you. So why not get a very cheap lead, call it yourself and transfer it to yourself? That's the main difference between a regular lead and
That makes sense to me.
yeah. Yeah. That was a bit confusing, but yeah. But I mean, there's so many leads out there. I know the YouTube ones were good too. Those are not as, you know, you don't see them as frequent, but if you do, like, be quick because I'll be after those if you're not. But those are the ones that I typically like to get. The mortgage ones with the pictures, those are also a little bit scarce, I would say. But if you can get your hands on those are usually pretty good too, because you have, you know, proof that they actually filled it out. So yeah, I mean, I just play around with them, but I try to, because again, it's a numbers game. So it doesn't matter what you get, honestly. At the end of the day, you just have to consistently continue getting them and making sure that you're working all your leads. Don't, like, you know, call them once and then, oh, I worked my lead. Like, you know, call them 3 times, text them, be annoying. You know, I said this before too. The only time I stop is that if they tell me, absolutely not, F off, I'm blocking you, or yes, let's set an appointment to talk, or, you know, let's close this right now. That's the only 2 times that I let a lead go.
Nice.
You know, I spend a lot of money on them, but I still work them, right?
100%. 100%. And let me ask you this. I got so many questions right now. But the first one, how much of what we do in general, but especially when it comes to investing in leads and being on the phone, has a component of just being willing to fail? Because, you know, a lot of times individuals, they want like the silver bullet. But in my opinion, there's no silver bullet. It's just hard work, and hard work consistently gives you success. So, you know, talk about that a little bit, Nicole.
You have to think about it. I mean, take yourself out of the insurance business for a second. And let's say you own a pizza shop. You know, the cheese is going to go bad. The sauce is going to go bad. The fish is sitting there. So if your leads are just sitting there, you're wasting them, right? But because I bought a bunch of ingredients for my pizza shop last week and I did amazing, am I going to stop buying the ingredients for next week? You can't. You always have to consistently spend money because, I mean, in reality, money that's sitting in a bank account is worth nothing because money is meant to be spent. So to make more money, you have to spend money. I'm not saying spend, I mean invest. Let me change the word real quick. You know, don't go shopping online. There's a difference. Hold on here. Like, but yeah, you have to invest money to make money. And that applies for everything. You know, you can't rent out a building if you don't buy, you know, the cement, the cylinder blocks. I don't even know why I'm using construction terms because I know nothing about construction, but, you know, like, you can't have a successful business if you're not having anything to work. We're a lead-based business, so you have to buy leads. I mean, even if you were a police officer, they work based off of leads to solve criminal cases. You're solving people's situations, you need leads, you know? So if you look at it like that, then your perspective on it completely changes.
Yeah, 100%. And just being willing to know that if you're looking for perfection, it's you're not going to find it. What you'll find is, you know, with being consistent, you have good results. But there is no perfect lead type, there's just plenty of leads, and you got to have plenty of leads. And one of the great things I heard today at the sales conference is that they're working on coming out with some, I think it's instant mortgage protection leads, just like we have instant internet leads. We're going to have some instant mortgage protection leads as well. And then there is, also when you are, if you have a lead in the CRM, like you get a CRM lead and the information is incorrect, they want some feedback on that stuff. So you could email leads@familyfirstlife.com, because now they have the software where they can be able to say, okay, this website is sending us leads consistently that has incorrect information. Let's stop using this website. Let's use this other website. So they'll be able to kind of increase the quality of the leads that we get. So that's effective immediately. Yeah, absolutely. Because we all get that sometimes, you know, address is incorrect, phone number is incorrect. It's par for the course. Now they want to be more proactive and start helping us increase the quality. So now I got a couple questions here, Nicole, in the chat. Let me jump to this real quick, and we'll just go down the list. And I appreciate your time again. Thank you so much for being transparent and sharing with us. Mark says, how do you avoid no-shows while running phone appointments? What tie downs do you use? So are you dialing, you're calling the close, like one call close a majority of the time, right?
That's the goal. Yeah.
Okay. So when you have to book an appointment, you know, under what circumstances do you book an appointment, and then how do you tie them down to limit them not being there when you do call them back?
So they're absolutely busy. I mean, you can kind of hear it in the background. If someone's like working on the plant, like you already know there's like so much background noise that you already know that they're actually busy. But what I do to solidify it is that I'm like, okay, Jermaine, no problem. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm actually going to send you a quick text with my license from an 817 number. I'm sending this right now. Let me know when you get it. And they'll be like, and I'll hear the phone going. Zzz. I'm like, okay, it sounds like you got the text. Just send me a thumbs up so that I know that you got it. And when will be the best time for me to give you a call back? Okay, perfect. I'm going to be calling you from that number at blah, blah, blah. I'll talk to you then. So they already have my personal number. They have my license. They know I'm a real person. So if they don't pick up at that point, I mean, I'm like, what the heck? But usually if I set a call back with them, 30 minutes prior, I'll shoot them a text. I'm like, hey, we spoke earlier. I'm just letting you know I'll be calling you in the next 30 minutes. And then some of them will, you know, send me a thumbs up or be like, okay, or they'll be like, hey, actually, I'm still at work. Can we reschedule for this time? So that's how I try to solidify no shows, is by, you know, sending them my license over text.
All right, good stuff. Next question here. Let's jump back into the chat. I think we went over that one. How much do you spend on leads on average? And this is asking on each leads purchase day, or like weekly. What's your average weekly investment in leads?
I split it 500 on Sunday, 500 on Wednesday. I didn't start that high initially. Obviously, I built myself up, but you know, again, to make more money, you want to spend more money. So I started at 250 twice a week. Then I bumped it up to 500 twice a week once I was getting my return. I mean, don't take food off the table, you know, pay your bills. But you want to make sure that you're at least spending a good amount and that you're consistent with that same amount.
Awesome, good stuff. And Anissa says, do you practice getting a commitment for an application prior to providing rates, solutions? Or how do you know when to proceed with providing rates? Because I know for me, sometimes when I'm in home, I could sense, and based on the client's body language or their answers to certain questions, I can sense if we're not getting anywhere. And I'm going to say, hey, it looks like this isn't working out, and I'm getting up and I'm going because I've got other appointments to see. Do you have anything in like that in place to you know, make sure that if you're proceeding, you're most likely going to close the deal?
Yeah, so it's like an agenda. So you let them know before you even get to asking medical questions or asking anything. You give them the agenda. Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at options. We're going to narrow it down. At that point, whoever's offering you the best rate, we're submitting an application. So you're setting that expectation that at the end of this conversation, we're submitting an application. Obviously, it doesn't all go, you know, rainbows and unicorns all the time. People still hang up people still are like, I can't afford it or whatever. And you can kind of go from there and find out their situation. But setting the expectation before you go into all that, they already know that, okay, well, I'm going to be submitting something over to underwriting and qualifying for the best rate. You just set that expectation. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Perfect. And then how do you pick counties for the CRM leads? Do you buy in the hot zone, underserved areas? Is a question from Wendy.
Literally, I just click and see what's available. I honestly wish I could tell you there's a strategy to it, but click, and then see what's available, because everyone's buying leads at the same time. Just get what you can,
Yep, 100%.
I have no strategy on that. I'm sorry.
Licensed in 32 states. That's my strategy, right?
But I mean, I would honestly, if you're familiar with like an area and you can relate to the client, especially if you're doing hybrid and, there's a county that's like closest to you, I would pick those counties, because then if they don't, if they set an appointment and they no-show me on the phone, I'm showing up, like I'm knocking on your door. I'm like, and I also got this from a laundry. I'm like, I thought you died. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you're alive. And then get in the door, Yeah.
100%.
I thought you died. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy you're alive.
Yeah, I've said that before. I did that on a door knock one time. I was like, oh my gosh, you're alive. Thank God. And she's looking at me like, what? Like, yeah, we were trying to call you.
I would 100% show up, be like, listen, we just thought you died. Just want to make sure you're okay.
Perfect. And then when it comes to tricks to getting people to pick up more, so how are you dialing the phone? I know with me, I'm dialing twice. I'm sending a text message, leaving a voice message. How are you dialing the phone?
So I don't leave voice messages, because my goal is to get it to as many leads in a short amount of time as possible. So I don't let them ring the whole time. I maybe let them ring for like 30, or not 30 seconds. That's a long time. 10 seconds. But I do it 3 times, triple dial. Some people would pick up on the third dial, like, what the? And they're like, oh, hello, can you hear me? You just like pretend like you don't even know what's going on. And then they'll calm down and kind of have the conversation with you from there. So I used to double tap, now I triple tap, and then I leave a text if they don't answer.
Yeah, good. And then what are you saying to yourself? Cameron has a question here about mindset when it comes to dialing. I know early on in my career, man, it was like I had to like talk myself up, because I was just like, whew, all right, about to get punched in the face. All right. So, but what's your mindset when it comes to getting on the phone and starting to dial? What are you saying to yourself to make sure you're in the right mind?
So people know when you have commission breath.
Yeah.
Don't do that. People will know on the phone. And this is something that I've told people, and I even have to remind myself sometimes, I don't want to be a hypocrite and say that I don't go through it still to this day, but you have to take it as, my job is not to sell. My job is to disposition these leads. So I have to go through these leads. I have to find the most likely buyer, whoever else is not interested or whatever their situation is. I don't care about those people. My job is to disposition until I find the most likely buyer. That's it. That's the mindset. Because the very first day I was on the phone, someone picked up, I hung right up. Like, I'm not ready. I can't do this.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, I've gone to houses initially when I got started, like, wait, should I go in? I'm a little nervous. I don't know if I'm going to screw this up or not. So it's all part of the process. Okay. And then how many dials are you making on a daily basis? I don't know if you track that or not, Nicole. If you had to estimate, like, what's a typical dial day, and how many appointments do you normally sit with, during the week?
This is something, and this is me, self accountability. We've been talking about, my dials have been very lately, but typically you want to at least try to have, your first dial session, you should have at least 300. Obviously, if you're talking to people, that's not going to be the case. So for me, it's like either do, 400 dials, 5 appointments, or 2 sales. That's like my non-negotiables for the day. If I don't have 400 dials, 5 appointments, like I just set it every single day, and then just have an activity tracker. And if it's like, 2 p.m. and you're just sitting down chilling, you're like, wait, I'm behind on my goals, then get back on the phone type thing. So Every single morning, you just like write down what you want to do. It might look different every day because let's say you might be onboarding somebody, or you have 3 callbacks with people or follow-ups, stuff like that. Just see what your schedule looks like and then make a schedule, from there with what goals you want to achieve for that day.
All right, perfect. 2 more questions and then we'll wrap up. One from Ryan, who's a new agent with us. She's doing phenomenal. She's doing a lot of telesales. And she asked, what do you do if somebody hangs up doing the banking information? And I guess they don't answer when you call back. I don't know, but do you encounter that, or how do you prevent that?
Again, setting the expectation. So before I get into the app, I let them know an agenda of how it's going to go. I used to be the same way. I just, oh, let's see if we can get you qualified. Let's go through this. And a lot of people, the very first thing that we do when we first start a call is that, okay, write down my information. My name is, my last name, and this is my state producer number. That way you can go to the Department of Insurance and verify that I'm a real agent. So you're already letting them know, hey, I'm a licensed agent. So that shouldn't be a thing. Typically people that hang up on the bank and routing is because they can't afford it. Like that's something that I found, is that those are the only people that I've had issues with, because people that obviously make money, they know direct deposit. I mean, that's how we do everything these days. Your phone bill, your car payment, everything comes out of your bank and routing. So it's just a common thing that for some people that can't afford it, it's like, oh, never mind. Buyer's remorse instantly, like hang up. So the way to prevent that is, make sure they do have an active bank account. Also make sure that you set the expectation. So, okay, so the next step is making sure that you get qualified. On the application, they're going to ask for your social security to simply verify that you are a US citizen, and also to make sure that your medical records are the same as everything that we went over together. Next thing, we're going to set your beneficiary information. God forbid something were to happen to you, the company needs to know who it is that will be receiving that money. And lastly, payment method, that'll be bank and routing. And then once we have all that information, we will then submit it over to underwriting, and we should get an answer back either today or tomorrow, depending how, everything goes. And then they'll be like, okay, spell out your legal first name for me, and kind of go from there.
Go right into it. So this key, setting expectation is so awesome, because it allows us not to have to overcome some of those objections. We just prevent them completely by being clear up front, and the same process in home. So awesome. So final question, Nicole, and then I'll let you share anything else that you want to kind of wrap up with. But besides you, right, who else would an agent that is either looking to get into telesales or struggling with telesales want to learn how to get better? Who else on YouTube should they be watching that you've watched or has good content and player content to be able to help them learn how to do better?
Honestly, you can watch, this goes for like self-development and motivation. You can watch all the videos in the world, but if you don't actually like jump in the water, like you're never going to get better. So everyone's style is different. What works for one person does not work for me whatsoever. Like there's stuff people would say that I'm like, I could never say that. Like how the heck, So you just have to, you literally just have to jump into it and do it. And then once you're doing it, then and you'll realize like what it is that you need to improve on. But I mean, there's so many podcasts out there. I feel like if you go and start watching all these videos, you're going to get overwhelmed. That's what I did coming from experience. So I just didn't do it. What I did was, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I just dove, right into it. And then any tweaks that I needed, any help that I needed, then I would go to my upline and be like, hey, so this is a situation. This is what happened. This is what was said. Having a Zoom, we have a live Zoom. It was easier for them to listen to it when I was on the phone. So like on dial days, when you guys are on Zoom and someone unmutes themselves and they get objections, stuff like that, then it's good to give them feedback, because then, they'll be like, hey, this is how I said this. You could be saying the exact same thing, but differently. And it makes a difference, right? So it's just having that feedback on your own actions that you're doing, on your own thing, and then kind of like tweaking from there. Because if you go out and watch all these videos, I mean, none of it matters unless you apply it. Like none of it matters.
Makes complete sense.
So that was the same thing. I'm like, I'm not ready. I don't want to start yet. I don't want to do it. And AJ's like, jump in. And he just pushed me right in. I'm like, oh man.
You better swim.
Had to learn, huh?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So anything else, Nicole, that you want to share before we wrap this up? And everybody start dropping thank yous in the chat, please. And I'm going to drop that photo from the top of the call in our WhatsApp chat so you guys can share on your social media. But start dropping some thank yous in the chat. Did we miss a question?
There.
Go
There was
ahead.
one
If you see
question
it,
that
grab
went
it.
directly to me. It's like, how many years have I done life insurance? I started in April. April 6th was my first policy, to be exact.
April
So,
of this year or last year?
no, this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
But you had years of sales experience. How long were you in healthcare and solar combined?
I was in health for a year and a half, and I was in solar for 9 months, something like that. So
Nine
I want to
months.
say two
Yeah.
years in
Yeah,
sales. Yeah.
about 2 years. Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
And do you think that was beneficial? So that what I one of the things I try to get new agents, because we sometimes have people that are trying to jump right into telesales and they've never sold anything before or sold it over the phone. Do you think it would make sense to start off with in person to hone your sales skills, or with a hybrid system because you're able to learn exponentially in person?
I think hybrid is great. You know, it just depends on your personality and what you're used to. I think hybrid gives you a little bit of, best of both worlds, because maybe while you're trying to set appointments for the next day, you end up closing the person right then and there. You have the ability to do that. And actually, companies, especially sales companies, and I learned this from my old company, they look for people with no experience, because the whole you can't teach an old dog new tricks, like they really
Yeah.
believe in that. But everyone's different. But the same thing, people that do best in sales are people that come from no sales experience, because you don't know what you don't know. You just go out there, do what they tell you, and then you're successful and you're like, wait, it actually works? What? That's crazy. So I wouldn't be discouraged by not having any sales experience, because honestly, like, those are the people that typically perform best in the industry.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. All right. Well, Nicole, we appreciate you. You see it in the chat. Everybody's saying thank
Thank
you.
you.
And we're gonna be shouting you out on social media. I appreciate you taking the time to hop on here and share with us and being so candid and open. And great job. What month are we? So you're 2 months in and just killing it already, which is just a testament to the hard work that you're putting into this thing. So great to have you on. And everybody, 7-Eleven, make sure you're at 7-Eleven. If you don't know what that is, look in the WhatsApp group. And so I think there's a few agents that are going to stay on and dial. I'm going to end the recording here.
Awesome.